Welcome everybody. As your moderators, we are very happy to have you with us on this second day of ACHIMA Pulse, and we welcome you to our Siemens and Guests show. My name is Andrew Whitehock, and I am joined by
Christine Brunner. It's a pleasure to be part of this wonderful show. Dear ladies and gentlemen, great that you're joining us once more for inspiring sessions and updates on process industry topics. And by the positive feedback we have received on yesterday's program, we are super happy. So thanks once more for joining. Andy, what was your highlight yesterday?
So the highlight was the session you did with Cedric Neike and Sartorius and BioNTech, but probably more were definitely the conversations that we were able to have on the platform. It was great to reconnect with some of the old contacts and also meet some new people, virtually as well.
And I guess you were not the only one who enjoyed these individual dialogues. We had a great lineup of speakers sharing their vision and knowledge yesterday. Really interesting to see and hear. I learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to more of that for today. And the good news is, there is more coming up today.
Definitely. Our top-class program continues. There really is something in it for everyone. And we are going to kick off with a look into the future with some customers.
That's right. I am pleased to start with the panel discussion on the outlook of where the digital transformation in process industry will take us. And for this, let me move into our lounge to introduce today's first guests.
Have fun, Christine. I'll see you on the other side.
Certainly. Where will the digital transformation journey take us? That is a good question, especially if you want to meet requirements like being highly flexible in process industry. For sure, our next talk will shed some light on this. And I am happy to welcome, joining us virtually, Dirk Ramhorst. He is CIO and CDO at Wacker Chemie AG. In the middle, then we have Dr. Bernhard Kirchmeier. He is CDO at Vinci Energies and responsible for Germany, Austria, Switzerland and Eastern Europe. Joining us on the right side here, we have Miguel Fernandez. He's the Senior Vice President Sales for Chemical, Oil and Gas and Glass Industry at Siemens AG. And we have joining us live here in the lounge, Steffen Wagner. He's the CTO and Vice President for Digital Enterprise at Process Automation at Siemens AG. Gentlemen, thank you. Great you're taking the time, joining me here and joining our discussion now. Awesome. I'm really delighted that we're having the chance to hear your views now on what the future will bring and what it will look like. And it's such a diverse round. So thumbs up, technology is working. Everybody is in here with us? Yup, I guess so. Cool. Okay, so let me start asking you first, Dirk. What is your opinion on how the chemical industry will transform in the next years?
Yeah, warm welcome from my end. This is a very good question because I can foresee a lot of changes. I mean, the traditional process industry is usually a process industry that has a long-lasting life cycle in their machinery and plants. Nevertheless, a lot of changes on the market side, and of course also some learnings from the COVID pandemic phase will change the way the business is operated today. I think one of the major changes we can see on the one hand side with large-scale installations, a kind of mass production perspective that will further increase. On the other side, the production needs to become more flexible, which means we will see much more modularization in certain aspects and much more individualization, almost on-demand production of small units. Especially when we go into emerging markets or smaller countries which have not yet the infrastructure that we have for years or decades here in Germany, for example, or in Europe. Therefore, this is a very important disruption ahead. Nevertheless, there are even more aspects coming into the game, which are related to, for example, the topic of circular economy. So how can we use reuse things, especially in the plastic production, for example, rather than having natural resources into our production processes. So the whole production needs to become more sustainable, also in terms of energy consumption. And here, of course, also the topic of digitalization ahead of automation will play a major role.
Honestly, that's a lot of buzzwords on the plate for the first question, and I'm sure we will come to almost all of them whilst our 25 minutes discussion now. So thanks ahead. Miguel, looking at the Siemens perspective on this, what is your point of view in regards of how the chemical industry will transform?
I think we will see more digitalization. We've been piloting, we've been working a lot already, but we will see now more applications, specifically because we also have new opportunities. We will see more opportunities on the digitalization side concerning, for example, the platforms. The edge technology allows efficient data management with calculations on premises versus calculations and analytics that can be done in the cloud. So these offers a new set of possibility. I think the flexibility that is required, specifically when we talk also about recycling, about new processes and so on, calls also, of course, for more modularity. I think here the buzzword is MTP that we support. I think we will also see there more activities. And overall in the digitalization, I think we will see also more of the applications for artificial intelligence and predictive analytics, because the customers want to understand ahead of time before things are failing and so on. So the digitalization, I would say, overall will gain more ground in the different levels, shop floor, or being also the planning and the interconnection, I would say, with markets, as just mentioned, and to gain more flexibility. So these are things that I think will change and will bring us, as was just said, more modifications and changes.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a lot of new technologies, which I touch points on later. Dirk, which topics will gain or lose, to your point of view, significance?
I mean, out of those that we have already on the table, I see that, gain momentum will get those topics that will pay into a digitalization approach. And out of digitalization, part of digitalization is a lot size one, which is difficult to reach in the process industry. But the way of managing the operations towards the customer is something that definitely will gain momentum. As well as, of course, we mentioned sustainability topics. Topics like size in terms of large-scale production will be, in my understanding, less relevant because the economies of scale have a different meaning if you look into sustainability.
And sustainability, very important. Bernhard, you're also mentioning.
Yeah, to pick up on that, actually, Dirk, because you mentioned circular economy, and I think this is a really fascinating perspective. Why? Because I feel there are like two dimensions to that. The one thing are all the opportunities that come with circular economy for the chemical industry. On the other hand, maybe we could expect that a certain demand for certain chemicals decrease, in fact, because things are reused increasingly in the future. So this might have an implication on, the cost structure, implying making production processes more effective, more efficient. And, I feel digital technology really can help with this regards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In many chemical installations, you have this idea of the so-called Verbund, which is the tightly integrated setup of different plants in terms of output-input relations. And with circular economy, of course, many of these traditional Verbund structures will come into a massive change how the way they are structured today. So therefore, yes, a lot of changes and a lot of winning as well as losing technologies.
All right, good perspective. Bernhard, let me raise my next question to you. What will production and operation look like in the future? For example, will demographical change have special influence?
I think it's worthwhile looking at other industries. Sometimes, in my humble opinion, the chemical industry might not always be the forerunner when it comes to digitalization. At the same time, also in my role, what I perceive is, people say whatever can be digitalized will be digitalized in some way. And I think, sometimes this is seen not only as a positive thing, but I do feel it can be positive. And this leads me to the demographic challenge, right? So I think in many contexts in the chemical industry, it's really about securing the know-how of elderly, of senior people. If you think about, we have a lot of baby boomers really, leaving the workforce in the next 2-3 years mainly. So how to secure that know-how and codifying that with digital means is an opportunity. At the same time, I also feel that digital is there to assist humans, to assist the workforce. And we see great approaches to increase worker safety, for example, virtual reality-based trainings with a very immersive experience and helping increasing the worker safety. Or things like, remote expert support. So if there are less experts available, how can you achieve to basically distribute this knowledge of experts without being the expert available on the plant?
Yeah, I can only echo what was just said. And there's one further aspect that needs to be, let's say, brought on the table, which is the fact that, of course, a chemical plant is operated 7/24. So it's not a pure lack of expertise in certain, let's say, day shifts. It's overall the willingness of people to do day and night inspection rounds, for example, in the plant. And here, in our experience, digitalization, robotics, for example, will have a major impact in the positive sense, not only for safety, but also in really to overcome this gap of available resources.
And Steffen, you're nodding. I guess you also have a Siemens perspective on this.
Yeah, of course. And I absolutely agree with which was said before. I mean, one thing is the cost pressure, of course. I mean, many customers out there really need to improve their cost position in terms of flexibility on one side, but also you mentioned the mass production. This is also turning out to a certain level in terms of costs. But on the other side, environment friendly is a key word. Yeah? When we look what's going out there in the world, we need to improve also the processes and reduce, for instance, emissions, but also the energy consumptions. And therefore, and this is a little bit what Miguel said, when we talk about new applications out there, these applications which come with digitalization will help us to improve this in the near future.
But would you say you can replace this know-how by experience and guts feeling with know-how by data lists?
Yes, that's a good question. And I mean, the question is, to which extent can AI, for instance, or robotic, which was mentioned by Dirk, really can help us in the future? And there are many, many activities out there, no matter where you look, in which industry, but also in process industry, of course. At the end, I mean, there's a fast-growing market in technology, but also the ecosystem with new startups, which bring ideas to the market, which easily can be adapted later.
So, Miguel, what is the impact on the work in the field?
Well, the work in the field gets more sophisticated as more digitalization walks in, I would say, as these jobs get more and more digitized. If we take that, for example, the aspect of new processes specifically for more sustainability, like plastic recycling and these kind of things, you might not have the experts everywhere. But now, for example, with our approach, for example, for the digital worker, you empower maintenance technicians together, looking at a tablet to work together with a specialist, for example, that is sitting somewhere else. So you can leverage the know-how in the company because you don't have this know-how everywhere. And through this tablet, a specialist can take a look at the problem in the plant, can support with redlining, or can help him help the local maintenance technician with some recommendations and explaining what to do. So these kind of things will be a natural activity in the future on the basis of these digitalization elements that we are contributing more and more. So these jobs over the time, as an example, this might serve, but over the time also will change, will get more sophisticated.
I guess especially the last month showed us, even like being office workers, that it's totally easy to work remote from home and trust others whom you haven't seen, and you're not sitting face to face at the table and trust what their recommendations are, even though you're not having this special human feeling now.
Absolutely.
But this is also the point. I mean, we have to make, I mean, last year when we started into the first wave of lockdown, etc., there was a lot of communication about now finally Germany becomes more digital. And it was associated with the fact that a lot of people work from home. But digitalization is much more. And we have to make sure that, for example, this separation of those people that can participate from, let's say, working from home, and it will continue to be a part of the new normal. But a lot of people that have to work in shifts and plants, etc., can't do this. And we have to make sure that this is not a factor that is splitting society in a certain way.
Fair point, very fair point, Dirk. Now, let's focus on these new technologies, and I'll stay with you. Which role do you think do startups play in these scenarios? Which opportunities with emerging new technologies do you see? And do you see also with providers all around over the place?
So in my case, I have a strategy that is based on two pillars. That is, on the one hand side, the established major vendors like Siemens, or in other cases ACP, for example. But on the other side, the second pillar is based on building up a startup ecosystem. And here we work with a couple of VCs, but also investment firms directly, in order to embrace the level of innovation that is out there. And it's not only the typical Silicon Valley ones. I would even say in production industries is less the ones. There are other areas, even around Bavaria or Israel or Singapore, that are very helpful, especially in things AI-driven or automation or other topics that are much easier to access from a startup perspective rather than from the established vendor perspective.
And Bernhard, I mean, you're working for VINCI Energies. Do you also cooperate with startups? Any experience, expertise, stories to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can't overemphasize how important young technology companies are for us. And why is that? I think, you know, the world is so complex. Technologies are so complex. And in the past, people said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But I think this is not true anymore. So if you want to go fast, you need to partner up with others. Now, the nice thing with startups is they are very verticalized. They are very verticalized. I think just in Germany, there were something like 45 billion of venture capital investments last year. So there's a lot of innovation out there, over 60,000 startups. And it's really highly recommended to identify the best fitting ones for one particular application that you want to drive forward, or any specific business that you want to develop. At the same time, I think it's not that easy for large corporates to work with startups. Different cultures, different methodologies, different expectations on both sides. So it's very clear, or very important to be very clear on that. And we're trying to get our head around by basically, having a program. We call it Startup Connect, a dedicated team of people who really understand the startup world and support our business units in a kind of advisory way and consulting way to partner up with startups and to make projects work.
Fair point. We also have our CEO, Cedric Neike from Digital Industries. He's always saying it's important to go for an ecosystem instead of the old ego-system, where you just were focusing on yourself. Now it's really the broad view and the help of a lot of others to join in. Stefan, what's your point of view?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bernhard, what you're saying absolutely right. And for big corporations, it's not so easy. That's true. But when I look a little bit on Siemens, I mean, there was an X47 installed some years ago, which helped us to drive this kind of VC approach in an external view. And now we are turning this also inside. I mean, last week I had a chance to participate. It was nearby in Nuremberg, where I took place in a hackathon, where young guys in Tollhaus, it was the name, just to come with new ideas, and at the end we make selection on that. And this is coming around the world. I mean, no matter if you look to Israel or to other countries, I mean, there's a huge crowdsource out there who wants to participate in this new trend. And so Siemens is changing in that. And when I look, for instance, to the Edge ecosystem, what we are currently rolling out from Siemens, here we are really open. We drive this open ecosystem. Everybody can join this ecosystem and participate in the solution at the end. And this is really great. But I'm agreeing, it's a long way to go.
But Bernhard, would you say that implementations become easier with startups?
Yes and no. Yeah, it's really depends. It depends. But I think the one thing that is for sure, and I'm picking up on the comment regarding ecosystem and ecosystem. So what I feel is, you know, my hypothesis is basically in the future that kind of the value of a company might more be determined by the ecosystem that this company brings to the table, rather than the specific product a company offers by themselves. And I think to go there, startups are very useful as far as the kind of cooperation that is done between startup and the corporate is done on the eye level, right? So I think it's important for corporates to be fully aware that it's not the large corporate and the small startup, but the startup really creates value that the corporate could not create by himself. And this is very important to recognize and to act in the right way.
And this is also for us, let's say, from a customer's perspective to Siemens, a huge demand. So that it's not only about us as a customer to build up this ecosystem, but it's also about a vendor like Siemens to build up an ecosystem around their platforms, which then allows to add certain features, functions based on the startup ecosystem into the platforms. So like a multi-plug that you can just enter a new plug and you can even remote if it's not working. And this then would give us a lot of flexibility rather than having the challenge on our table to do all the integrations.
That's absolutely true, Dirk, what you are saying. And when I take a closer look on the last 2 to 3 years, what changed inside Siemens, there's a huge demand also from customers, but also from the startups and from partners, and therefore we are currently keen to open this more than in the past.
And Miguel, I've seen you nodding as well. Any points from you? I mean, you're the core of chemical industries, I would say, within Siemens.
I'm happy to tell you that, of course, this is also exactly our thinking. That's what also our CEO mentioned or said, that all our systems are open, being it software packages or tools or hardware towards different standards to be connected. And it is exactly our understanding. I think the challenge is more how to identify the best solutions among all these different applications, and which of these applications are they really then making let's say, the next step for the industry. And this is a challenge that we, of course, have together with our customers, because there are many different approaches right now. We foster, I think, new ideas in the different approaches. We've heard that. I think we shared the value. But the question is now how to implement these things. Additional, for example, artificial intelligence in different ways, how to implement these in the processes. I mean, that's... on one side, we have all this intelligence and these new approaches. On the other side, then we have the brutal reality and how to map this then. This is I think, a challenge where we are helping the chemical customers, for example, with consulting on different levels, with concepts and things. But again, this is part of this transition of this adaptation process and of this learning process.
So I'm staying with you. How do you think do we master these challenges with new solutions? What is needed?
Well, I think our customers need to have a clear view, and they don't need to elaborate this themselves. We're helping them and so on to identify the right architectures and the right approaches. As I said, we will have more digitalization all over the place. So this means we need to adapt the job profiles, we need to adapt the operations procedures and things like this. And then, of course, over the time, make life less complex in the shop floor or in the operations overall. Learn to adopt results from simulation, from artificial intelligence in these operations, and learn also what we also have learned in COVID-19 now, how to leverage the entire know-how in the company. As you were saying, as it was said, we will have a drainage of know-how in nearly all industries. How can we leverage this? And the technology there, as I just gave the example of the digital worker, but also with other means to capture this knowledge and implement this on the operations. But again, we need to work jointly and on these operations. And on top of this, it needs to be safe and secure. Okay, and also in this respect, cybersecurity is an aspect. So this is not just, hey, let's modify. We have to keep things on a safe and secure track, understandable for the people, and they have also to absorb it. And which I just want to finish, we need to bring the people along too. Don't let us forget this, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So motivation of the people is definitely a key thing here as well, not just collecting data.
Yes.
Okay. Bernhard, any point from your side on top in regards of cross units?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we tend to speak about technology when we talk about digital, in fact, but I think, like the cultural dimension is a very important one as well, right? So, in fact, I think it's like digital is inherently horizontal. And it always needs to be combined with some verticalization. So IT and OT, you've got mixed project teams, you've got different approaches, how you manage a project. It's really, really fundamental things like, even on the language level, what does network mean? What does interface mean? OT, IT people have a different view on that. So sometimes digital, the barrier for driving digital projects are really such fundamental things, and organizations need to learn and need to adapt on that. And this happens on a human level, not on a technology level. So I think this would be the main thing that I would like to add to what Miguel was saying.
Steffen, let me raise the next question to you. Do you think standards help to overcome and master all these challenges, what we've just heard before?
They will help, and they are also required. But at the moment, they are lacking a little bit. Yeah, when we take a closer look on the standards which are driven by process industry customers, for instance, the NAMU open architecture or the Open Group in US, but also smaller things like the asset administration shell, which is required to transfer data between different vendors, for instance, at an early stage. And when we take a closer look, many technologies come in, startups came in, and there is a lot of energy in the market, and so they need this. So it means definitely it needs more time to establish the standards, and at the end we come to the same level of standardizations in comparison to what automation business did in the last years.
All right, so let me come to Dirk now. Dirk, you're working for Wacker. That is brownfield for sure. So what do you think, are there special challenges for you in that field? Where do you see the future go to?
I mean, here I would give a more general answer. I mean, all the chemical companies have a huge amount of existing assets that are in operation for quite a while. I mean, even decades. And here we have a strong demand from suppliers like Siemens to have a brownfield option, because, I mean, when we talk about AI, when we talk about digitalization, it's a large extent about data. And many of the factories do not have sensors built in, coming from whatever the 70s, 80s when they have built. All the sensors have been built from an automation perspective rather than a digital perspective, because it was no digitalization at that stage. So this is very important, because we cannot just write off all the assets and just invest in everything new. And this is very key. So upgrading the existing assets towards the digital age with all the challenges we started in this session from.
I'm sad to say, but time is over. It was super interesting talking to you. Very inspiring, really great insights, information, and there is definitely a lot on your plates. So thank you for joining, taking the time. I really enjoyed this session here, and I'm curious what we will be talking about next year, in 1 year from now at the Achim, and what has been developed until then. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day at Achim Pulse, of course, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Stefan, to you, thank you for coming here into the lounge. I hope you enjoyed it as much.
It was my pleasure.
For me, the crystal ball now of the future of chemical industry is a bit clearer now. And thank you, dear ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Now, let's head over to another point in our agenda. Enjoy.
Thanks, Christine. What a great discussion. A journey into the future. It's always exciting, right?
Absolutely. I love this lively discussion with my participants. So, Andy, what do you think about taking our guests on a little trip of a different kind?
Sounds mysterious.
Well, I have prepared something very special for all of you. Just come and join me. Safety first. Of course, we are taking care of all safety measurements. No testing, no TV production with us. It's all about safety, and we even have a firewall. The communications team is being busy, and preparations are running full speed. Let's do a trick with Andy and give him a blackout.
Christine! Is that you again?
It wasn't me. Here comes the sun.
And action.
The teleprompter saves our lives. Always the right words and phrases to say.
But his spelling's terrible.
Talking about cutting-edge technologies, this is where it's happening. What are we talking about in 6.3?
Oh, it's here. No, it's 6.3.
No. Oh, Andy!
Welcome back to our viewers, and welcome back, Christine.
Great being back here.
Great to see you putting all those faces that are supporting us here onto the camera.
Well, there are definitely more than just the two of us at this set here.
That's right, and we're still managing to have a little bit of fun, even though all these safety measures that we've been taking as well.
Having fun at work, nothing wrong with that.
Half the rent.
I really hope you also enjoyed this little trip backstage with us. And Andy, what's now on the program for the next 2 hours?
Well, Christine, we will be back on the hour at 10 a.m. Frankfurt time with another very interesting customer talk. I'll be joined by Hajo Neumann from Merck and with Eckhard Eberle on the sofa to talk about modularization and flexibility in production. So tune in again at 10 a.m. sharp.
And before that, don't forget to check out the other sessions we are hosting during Achim Pulse, either on the Siemens exclusive channel or on the Achim Pulse channel. And please do not hesitate to get in touch with any of our experts through the online networking tool.
Yes, we are around for you the whole day, so contact and engage with us whenever you want. You can find the right person by searching through the Siemens topics.
Brilliant.
See you later.
See you later.